Earth 2157. The gleaming orbital platforms of Mars Research Station Alpha rotated silently against the rust-red planet below. Inside her laboratory, Dr. Elena Reyes held her breath as the countdown reached 0. "Firing sequence initiated," announced the eye's calm voice. A barely perceptible vibration ran through the station as the experimental railgun discharged. On the observation screens, a projectile no larger than a pencil erupted from the muzzle, leaving a brief flash of superheated plasma in its wake. Impact on target drone in 3, 2, 1. 300,000 kilometers away, the target drone disintegrated into a cloud of vaporized metal and carbon. The holographic readout flashed numbers that should have been impossible. Elena's hands trembled, not from fear, but from the realization of what they'd created. "Velocity recorded at 0.92 c," reported Dr. Sanjay Kapoor, his voice barely above a whisper. "Energy yield exceeding predictions by 347%. The laboratory fell silent as the implications sank in. Their breakthrough in magnetic acceleration technology, originally designed to launch deep space probes, had just shattered humanity's understanding of what was possible. "If these readings are correct," Sanjay said, "we've just invented the most powerful weapon in human history." Elena frowned. "It's not a weapon, Sanjay. It's a propulsion system. With all due respect, Elena, anything that can accelerate mass to near-light speed is a weapon, whether we intended it to be or not." Before she could respond, an alert chimed through the station's communication system. Lieutenant Commander Wei Zhang appeared on the main screen, his usually composed features tight with concern. "Dr. Reyes, we're detecting unusual gravitational disturbances near Neptune's orbit. Something has entered the system." "Astronomical anomaly?" Elena asked, already knowing deep down this was something else. Wei shook his head. "The object is changing velocity and direction in patterns inconsistent with natural phenomena. It's slowing down, Doctor. And it's big, at least 3 kilometers in length based on preliminary readings." The laboratory erupted into controlled chaos as researchers rushed to secure data and equipment. Humanity had theorized about extraterrestrial intelligence for centuries, but theory was becoming reality at a moment when they'd just tested a technology with devastating potential. "Send all test data to the secure server and initiate purge protocols on the local systems," Elena ordered. "Lieutenant, who else knows about this object?" UNSC Deep Space Monitoring picked it up simultaneously. "They're implementing First Contact Protocol Omega. The Security Council is convening in 1 hour, and they've requested your presence via quantum link." Elena nodded, her mind racing. Humanity had spread throughout their solar system, established colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter, and was pushing the boundaries of physics. Yet they remained cosmic infants in the grand scheme. If an advanced civilization had arrived, humanity's survival might depend on the impression they made. "Tell them I'll be there," she said. "And Sanjay, lock down the railgun. No more tests until we know what we're dealing with." As the team scrambled to secure their research, Elena stared at the velocity readings one last time before wiping the screen. 92% of light speed. Such power could propel humanity to the stars, or ensure their extinction, depending on what waited beyond Neptune. Humanity was about to discover they were not alone, and their new technology had arrived just in time. The hegemony vessel, Inevitable Dominance, entered Earth orbit with casual precision, its kilometer-long hull dwarfing humanity's largest space station. Inside the United Earth Security Council chamber, screens display the alien ship's impossible dimensions as diplomats and military leaders fidgeted in uncomfortable silence. Elena arrived via quantum projection, her holographic form materializing minutes before the alien delegation. Admiral Chen briefed her in hushed tones. "They call themselves the Hegemony. 7 other ships have taken positions throughout the system. All communication has been on their terms." Before Elena could respond, the air shimmered as 3 alien forms appeared. The central figure stood nearly 3 meters tall, with iridescent scaled skin that shifted in complex color patterns. Four amber eyes swept the room with what Elena immediately recognized as amused condescension. "I am Commander Zax Toril," the alien announced through a translation device, diplomatic overseer of the Hegemony's expansion division. President Alvarez rose to welcome them, but Zax Toril continued without acknowledgement. "Your civilization has been evaluated and classified as Development Stage 3, pre-unification expansion. You are eligible for hegemony protection and limited technological exchange." The alien's secondary eyes never quite focused on any human for long, as if they were barely worth the attention. In exchange, the hegemony requires resource allocation rights and acceptance of standard developmental restrictions. "What restrictions?" Elena asked before protocol officers could stop her. Zax Toril's scales rippled with blue and violet patterns. "Standard prohibitions for Stage 3 civilizations. No faster-than-light research. Controlled expansion limited to your current solar system. Oversight of weapons development exceeding Threshold K classification." Elena's mind raced. Threshold K would include their railgun technology. President Alvarez intervened smoothly. "We appreciate your generous offer, Commander. Our council will need time to discuss these terms." "Of course," Zax Toril replied. "You have 72 of your hours to accept our protection. I should mention that unprotected Stage 3 civilizations rarely survive first contact with less diplomatic species than ourselves." After the aliens departed, the council erupted into heated debate. Military leaders urged caution while corporate representatives saw opportunity in alien technology. Elena requested access to classified files and projected them for the council to see, long-range astronomical observations of other star systems. "These are worlds the hegemony has protected for over a century," she explained, displaying barren, strip-mined planets. "And these are their civilizations." The images showed dome-enclosed cities surrounded by vast wastelands, the inhabitants living in technological stasis, while hegemony mining operations consumed their resources. "This isn't protection," Elena said. "It's colonization by another name." Admiral Chen's communications officer interrupted with an urgent message. "Additional hegemony ships have entered the system. They're taking up tactical positions around Mars, Jupiter's moons, and our primary resource operations." The room fell silent as the implications became clear. This wasn't a diplomatic overture, it was the prelude to invasion. Elena's secure tablet chimed with an encrypted message from her team on Mars. One of their junior researchers had disappeared. Attached surveillance footage showed them being abducted by a hovering probe of clearly alien design. "They know about the railgun," she whispered to Admiral Chen. "And they're already moving against us." The Admiral's expression hardened. "How quickly can your technology be weaponized?" "It already is," Elena answered. "They just don't know how powerful it really is." Deep within the asteroid Ceres, industrial mining lasers carved out a massive chamber where no curious hegemony eyes could see. The project had been code-named Longshot, a name that reflected both its technical purpose and humanity's desperate odds. Elena's breath condensed in the frigid air as she inspected the massive electromagnetic coils being installed along what would become the world's largest railgun barrel. The asteroid's natural composition provided perfect camouflage for the energy signatures their work produced, while its position in the belt gave them strategic firing angles throughout the inner system. "Primary cooling system installation complete," reported Chief Engineer Kamari, her dark skin glossy with perspiration despite the cold. "But the superconducting material is degrading faster than projected." Elena examined the technical readouts. "We need to solve the heat dissipation issue before full-scale testing. Divert resources from secondary systems if necessary." Since the hegemony's arrival 3 weeks ago, Earth's politicians continued their diplomatic dance, while secretly authorizing the militarization of Elena's research. Key scientists and military personnel had been quietly relocated to Ceres along with their families, maintaining the fiction of routine asteroid mining operations. Admiral Chen entered the command center, her uniform immaculate, despite the dusty conditions. "The hegemony is getting suspicious. They've requested inspection tours of our major research facilities. Let me guess, starting with Mars Station Alpha, Alina said. Exactly. We've stalled them with bureaucratic procedures, but that won't work forever. A klaxon blared, interrupting their conversation. Red emergency lights bathed the command center as technicians scrambled to their stations. Full-scale test firing initiated prematurely, shouted Kamari from the main console. Systems overloading. Abort sequence, Elena commanded, rushing to the controls. Unresponsive. Something's overridden the safety protocols. Elena watched in horror as temperature readings spiked throughout the barrel assembly. The massive electromagnetic coils glowed white-hot on the monitors before the cameras failed. Evacuate sectors 3 through 7, ordered Admiral Chen, her voice steady despite the chaos. A thunderous boom shook the entire facility as emergency bulkheads slammed down. 3 sections of the asteroid's interior had been flash-melted by the catastrophic energy release. 6 hours later, Elena stood in the medical bay, watching 3 body bags being prepared for transport to the makeshift cemetery. Chief Engineer Kamari lay in a nearby bed, her hands and face heavily bandaged from radiation burns, sustained while manually cutting power to the system. It wasn't an accident, Kamari whispered, her voice hoarse with pain. Someone sabotaged the coolant regulators. The system logs show external access. Elena's tablet chimed with an encrypted message from Earth. Hegemony ships repositioning toward Mars and outer research stations. Orbital defense grids reporting targeting scans. They know. Admiral Chen joined her, eyes grim. Elena, we're out of time. The diplomatic team has lost contact with Hegemony representatives. Their ships are powering weapons systems. How long? Elena asked. 48 hours at most. Probably less. Elena looked at the schematics of their half-completed weapon, then at the faces of her exhausted team. They had hoped for months to perfect the system. They would have days. Evacuate all non-essential personnel to the emergency bunkers, she ordered. Divert all power to the primary coil assembly. We don't need a perfect weapon. We just need one that fires. The race against extinction had begun. The skies above Earth's cities erupted with blinding light as hegemony weapons fire breached the atmosphere. Orbital defense platforms, humanity's first line of protection, detonated like fragile glass ornaments under the aliens' superior firepower. From the lunar colony, horrified civilians watched as kinetic bombardment weapons struck major population centers, the impacts visible even from 240,000 miles away. Massive dust clouds billowed into the stratosphere, obscuring entire continents. In New Shanghai, 8-year-old Jin Mei clutched her mother's hand as they rushed toward an underground shelter. She looked up just in time to see a hegemony destroyer emerge through the clouds, its massive silhouette blotting out the sun. The girl's final thoughts were of the strange beauty of the energy beam that vaporized her city. On the bridge of the hegemony command vessel, Commander Zax Toril observed the destruction with clinical detachment. Resistance in the European sector has been eliminated, reported his tactical officer. Asian population centers are 87% pacified. Estimated human casualties, 1.4 billion. Continue bombardment until all military installations are confirmed destroyed, Zax Toril ordered. His scales rippled with patterns indicating mild discomfort, but his voice remained steady. Primitive species with dangerous technology must be contained. This was hegemony doctrine. History had proven its necessity. Commander, interrupted his second officer, Mars defense platform is attempting to engage. On the tactical display, the small human outpost launched a series of conventional railgun projectiles. Primitive by hegemony standards, but still capable of causing damage. One struck a support vessel, penetrating its outer shields before being stopped by secondary barriers. Impressive, Zax Toril noted. Their kinetic weapons technology is more advanced than expected. Mars Research Station Alpha has been located, announced the sensor operator. It appears to be the source of their railgun development. Target and eliminate, Zax Toril commanded. Ensure nothing remains. The Hegemony battlecruiser positioned over Mars fired a sustained plasma beam. The research station, along with all evidence of Elena's advanced Railgun project, disintegrated in a blinding flash. Confirmation of target destruction, reported the tactical officer. No survivors. Satisfied, Zax Toril ordered bombardment to continue until all resistance ceased. The humans had been given their chance to accept hegemony rule. Their choice to resist was regrettable but unsurprising for a Stage 3 civilization. Unknown to the hegemony commander, Elena and her core team had evacuated weeks earlier. In their hidden Cirrus facility, they watched the destruction via remaining surveillance satellites. The command center was silent except for the occasional sob as team members recognized locations where family and friends had lived. Elena stared at the screen showing London's burning ruins. Her daughter Sophia had been attending university there. The confirmation of the city's destruction came through in clinical text. L'Indion, total infrastructure, QOLAPC. No communications remaining. She allowed herself exactly 60 seconds of grief, counting each breath to maintain control. When the last second passed, she wiped her eyes and turned to her team. The hegemony believes they've destroyed our research. They think we're beaten. Her voice was steel wrapped in ice. That is the only advantage we have, and we're going to use it. Admiral Chen nodded grimly. How long until the weapon is operational? 6 months, Elena answered. If they give us that long. The hegemony had just made the fatal mistake of leaving humanity with nothing left to lose. 6 months after what survivors called the Great Burning, hegemony harvester ships entered Earth orbit. The planet below was largely silent, its once bustling cities reduced to ruins. Scattered human enclaves remained, but with no centralized resistance. The hegemony considered the pacification complete. Commander Zax Toril, now High Commander following his promotion, stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Eternal Dominion. Larger than its predecessor, the vessel represented the highest achievement of hegemony engineering. Begin resource extraction protocols, he ordered. Priority on rare earth elements and fissionable materials. High Commander, interrupted a sensor technician. I'm detecting an unusual energy signature from the asteroid belt. Classification. Consistent with human mining operations, several small outposts survived in the belt. Likely desperate survivors continuing basic resource collection. Zax Toril dismissed the concern. Monitor but do not interfere unless they attempt to approach Earth. They pose no threat. It was the last mistake he would make as High Commander. Deep in the Cirrus installation, Elena Reyes stood in the firing control center. 6 months of relentless work had transformed their prototype into a weapon of unprecedented power. The entire asteroid had effectively become a massive railgun, with superconducting coils lining a barrel that ran through its core. Target locked, reported the weapons officer, a former lunar defense specialist. Hegemony flagship identified. Elena looked at Admiral Chen, who gave a solemn nod. Fire, Elena commanded. The lights throughout the installation dimmed momentarily as power systems channeled unimaginable energy into the magnetic accelerators. A simple tungsten rod, 3 meters long and 30 centimeters in diameter, accelerated from 0 to 99.9% of light speed in less than a second. On the tactical display, they watched the projectile's trajectory, a straight line across 200 million kilometers of space, crossing the distance almost instantly. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, Zax Toril had a microsecond to register the energy spike before the relativistic projectile struck. The kinetic energy released equaled a small nuclear weapon. The flagship didn't explode so much as simply cease to exist, converted into superheated plasma that briefly outshone the sun. Before the remaining hegemony fleet could process what had happened, 5 more shots fired in rapid succession. Elena's targeting systems, linked to the few remaining military satellites, picked off the largest ships first. What's happening? demanded the Hegemony Battle Group commander as his vessels began disappearing from tactical displays. "Unknown weapon," cried his sensor officer. "The projectiles are moving too fast to track." Alina activated the communication system, broadcasting on all frequencies. "This is humanity. We gave you the chance to leave in peace. You chose war. So be it." The remaining hegemony vessels scattered in panic, their supposedly impenetrable shields useless against weapons moving at relativistic speeds. FTL drives engaged as they fled, leaving their harvesting equipment behind. In the Cirrus Command Center, the firing team erupted in cheers. For the first time in recorded history, a hegemony fleet had retreated. Admiral Chen approached Alina, who stood silently watching the tactical display. "We've won the first battle," the admiral said quietly. Alina shook her head. "No, we've just started the war." She turned to face the command staff, her eyes hard with resolve. "Begin recharging the coils. The hegemony will return with everything they have." She glanced at the firing calculations on her tablet. "And we'll be ready." In the Arcturian mining colonies, slave workers froze as their overseer's attention turned to emergency broadcasts. Grainy footage, intercepted and transmitted through forbidden channels, showed hegemony dreadnoughts, vessels that had inspired terror for millennia, disintegrating under human railgun fire. "Is it real?" whispered a young Arcturian to an elder. "Watch the overseers' faces," the elder replied. "Fear doesn't lie." In the Grand Hegemony Council chambers on the capital world Domavar, the atmosphere was apocalyptic. 12 supreme counselors, representatives of the founding species, gathered in emergency session as the report from Sol system was verified and re-verified, each confirmation more devastating than the last. "Impossible," roared High Chancellor Vexmore, his massive tentacles lashing the air. "No Stage 3 civilization has ever defeated a hegemony pacification fleet." Military strategist Cletharian, her crystalline form glinting under the chamber lights, projected the battle data. "The humans have developed relativistic kinetic weapons. Their projectiles achieve 99.9% of light speed, rendering our shield technology ineffective." "Then we must respond with overwhelming force," Vexmore declared. "Deploy planet killer weapons and sterilize their system." "I advise caution," Cletharian countered. "Their weapon represents an existential threat to hegemony supremacy. If other subjugated worlds acquire this technology, then we ensure no evidence survives," interrupted Vexmore. In a lower chamber, the disgraced Zax Toril faced court-martial. Once High Commander, he now stood accused of catastrophic failure, allowing a primitive species to destroy 11 capital ships and damage 7 others. As the proceedings began, his personal communication device vibrated with an encrypted transmission. The message contained detailed images of his homeworld, with railgun targeting coordinates precisely indicated. A text message followed. "Defect. We need information. You need allies. The hegemony will make you their scapegoat. We offer an alternative. Decision time." Zax Toril's scales shifted to patterns indicating deep conflict. The hegemony had ruled for 20,000 years, but never had they faced a weapon like this. His people had joined the hegemony as junior partners centuries ago, but remained second-class citizens. Perhaps it was time for change. Meanwhile, humanity began rebuilding. The few remaining orbital factories worked constantly, reverse engineering captured hegemony technology. Alina, now holding the rank of general, oversaw the construction of a dozen more Cirrus-class weapons platforms throughout the asteroid belt. In a secure conference room, she met with representatives from Earth's surviving governments. The holographic displays showed construction progress alongside disturbing new intelligence. "The hegemony is mobilizing its main battle fleet," Alina reported, "but something unexpected has happened." She displayed intercepted communications from 6 different star systems, all formerly hegemony-controlled worlds where slave uprisings had suddenly erupted. "Word of our victory is spreading. We're not alone in our resistance," a communications officer interrupted with an urgent message. General, we're receiving a transmission from the Proxima Centauri system. It's not hegemony. The main screen activated to show an alien, clearly not hegemony, with silver-blue skin and 4 arms. It spoke in carefully practiced human English. People of Earth, I am Ambassador Thelcor of the Proxima Coalition. For centuries, we have hidden from hegemony detection. We have watched your resistance with great interest. Perhaps it is time we combined our efforts. Alina stepped forward. How many worlds are in your coalition, Ambassador? 17, General Reyes. And after witnessing what humanity achieved with a single weapon, all 17 wish to learn from you. For the first time since the Great Burning, Alina smiled. The hegemony returned with a vengeance. 500 capital ships, including 3 planet killers, emerged from FTL at the edges of the solar system. Their formation spread across the orbital plane like a massive net, designed to trap and crush any resistance. On the bridge of the hegemony command vessel Inevitable Retribution, Grand Admiral Xen Ver addressed his battle group leaders. The humans have been allowed to exist for too long. This ends today. In the Cirrus Command Center, now the heart of humanity's defense network, Alina studied the tactical display with Admiral Chen and their new ally, Ambassador Thelcor of the Proxima Coalition. They've committed nearly half their total fleet strength, observed Thelcor. Even my people have never seen such a force deployed against a single system. They're afraid, Alina replied. For the first time in their history, they face an enemy who can hurt them. The tactical officer's voice cut through the tension. Incoming transmission from Zax Toril. The former hegemony commander's face appeared on screen. His scales were dull, lacking the vibrant colors of his previous authority. The invasion force includes 3 planet killers, he reported. They intend to sterilize Earth completely and destroy all asteroids large enough to potentially hide your weapon. Alina nodded to Admiral Chen, who transmitted prearranged coordinates to their hidden forces. Throughout the asteroid belt, 23 railgun platforms, disguised as ordinary asteroids, powered up their systems. Earth's rebuilt defense fleet, though small, now incorporated hegemony shield technology thanks to Zax Toril's defection. And they weren't alone. From the shadow of Jupiter, ships from the Proxima Coalition decloaked, bringing their own unique technologies to the fight. All units in position, reported Admiral Chen. Awaiting your command, General. Alina squared her shoulders. Implement Alpha Strike Protocol. 5 railgun platforms fired simultaneously, targeting the hegemony's lead vessels. At relativistic speeds, the tungsten rods struck with devastating force. But this time, the hegemony was prepared. Emergency FTL jumps saved 3 of the 5 targets, though 2 cruisers disintegrated instantly. They've adapted their tactics, Zax Toril warned. They won't remain in fixed positions anymore. The battle spread across the solar system. Jupiter's moons became strategic high ground, while Neptune's orbit hosted devastating ambushes. Alina coordinated from Cirrus Prime, implementing tactics no hegemony admiral could predict. Zax Toril provided the command codes that allowed human hackers to temporarily disable hegemony targeting systems, giving Earth's smaller ships crucial advantages in multiple engagements. But the hegemony's numbers began to tell. 3 railgun platforms were destroyed by concentrated fire before they could recharge. A coalition ship sacrificed itself to save Earth's last orbital defense station. The planet killers are moving into position, reported the tactical officer. 15 minutes until they're in range of Earth. Alina activated the communication system. All platforms, prepare for Operation Shotgun. This was their final gambit, simultaneously firing all remaining railgun platforms not at ships, but at asteroids precisely positioned to shatter into thousands of relativistic fragments. Fire, Alina commanded. The hegemony formation, designed to defend against single powerful impacts, had no defense against this deadly cloudburst of hypersonic shrapnel. Ships began disappearing from tactical displays as countless impacts overwhelmed their shields. As his flagship burned around him, High Chancellor Vexmore transmitted one final message. You do not understand what you've done. There are worse things than us beyond the rim. Then his signal terminated permanently. On Earth, survivors emerged from shelters to see streaks of light across the sky. The death throes of the hegemony fleet. Humanity had survived. 5 years after what historians now call the Battle of Seoul, the new Geneva space station hung at Earth Luna L1, a gleaming testament to humanity's survival and rebirth. Its central diplomatic chamber was constructed around a preserved fragment of the hegemony flagship, a reminder of both victory and cost. Elena, now in her 70s, walked with the assistance of an exoskeleton. Radiation exposure during the war had taken its toll, but her mind remained sharp as ever. As she entered the grand chamber, representatives from 57 formerly subjugated species rose in respect. The Solar Accord signing ceremony was about to begin. "Never thought I'd live to see this day," Admiral Chen whispered beside her. The Admiral's face bore the scars of the final battle, but her eyes shone with pride. "Nor I," Elena admitted, especially not after London. She had learned 3 years after the Great Burning that her daughter Sophia had survived in an underground shelter. Their reunion had been private, away from the ceremonies and accolades that followed humanity's victory. Some wounds needed healing away from public view. Ambassador Zax Toril approached, his once vibrant scales now faded with age. "General Rice, the Accord representatives are ready." Elena nodded and took her position at the podium. Before her lay the document that would reshape galactic civilization. Its principles were simple but revolutionary. Technological cooperation without restriction, mutual defense against any threat, and the right of all sentient species to develop without interference. As she prepared to sign, memories flashed through her mind. The test firing on Mars, the first hegemony contact, the devastating losses of the Great Burning, and the desperate gamble of their Railgun strategy. "Did you ever imagine this day when you first entered our system?" she asked Zax Toril quietly. "Never," he admitted. "In 20,000 years of hegemony history, no species has ever done what yours did. Unite rather than fracture under overwhelming pressure." Elena signed the document, then stepped aside as representatives from each member world added their signatures. The ceremony concluded with the activation of the Accord's first joint project, a massive space telescope array pointed toward the galactic rim, where unusual energy signatures had been detected in recent months. As delegates celebrated, Elena slipped away to a private observation deck. There, she met with the leaders of the newly formed Solar Defense Force. Admiral Chen spread star charts across a holographic table. "High Chancellor Vexmore's final warning bothers me," Elena said. "I want deep space railgun platforms here, here, and here." She marked positions along the outer rim of human space. A lieutenant entered with an urgent report. "General, the extragalactic signals have been partially decoded. They're not random." Elena studied the patterns. After years of war, she recognized what others might miss. These were tactical communications. Something was organizing beyond the galaxy's edge. "How long until whatever's out there reaches us?" she asked. "At current velocity estimates, 5 years. Maybe less." Elena nodded, her expression resolute. She had helped humanity survive one extinction-level threat. They would be ready for the next. "Send them a message," she ordered. "Tell them humanity says hello." The lieutenant looked confused. "Is that all?" Elena gazed out at the stars, a slight smile forming on her lips. "For now. The rest will be delivered at 99.9% the speed of light, if necessary." Around Earth, construction had already begun on a new generation of defenses. The universe had proven to be more dangerous than humanity had ever imagined, but they had proven more dangerous than the universe expected. The galactic tide had shifted, and humanity's rise had only just begun.